Welcome to episode 4 of GearGeek.com, the interview series. My name is Matt. I'm joined by our co-host Zach, and we are joined by a special guest today. He was the seventh round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 2011 NHL draft. Obviously, spent time with the Leafs thereafter, and then also with the Vegas Golden Knights and the Los Angeles Kings. A native of Elmhurst, Illinois. Thank you for joining us today, Garret Sparks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Definitely. That we're going to get into some good goalie talk. You're our first goaltender here on the interview series, and just in doing some research from you, we've seen some of the and from what a lot of people probably remember, some of the sick setups you've had over the years. So it's going to be good. But first and foremost, how's everything going with you? It's our understanding that you're taking the year off right now. You've been, in pro hockey for the last several, but overall, how's everything going for you?
It's been good. I just need a little bit of a break and had some other opportunities that I figured were worthy of my time and attention. And so I just kind of have come back home. I've been hanging out in Elmhurst. I've been helping out with some of the teams down in the city with the mission, some of the goalies, and recently I've started helping out with the Chicago Hawks as well, which is a double A program in the neighborhood. So yeah, just staying on the ice, playing a bunch of men's league, ripping around, scoring goals, just kind of keeping the dream alive.
That's awesome. So, yeah, let's talk about gears in general, man. How would you describe yourself in terms of the passion as a gear guy, and like goalie gear, and like where did this passion come from? Like, what really got into it?
Honestly, I don't I don't necessarily know. Like growing up, like was always very in tune with the stuff that I was wearing, and always wanted to look good on the ice. Got a lot of nice sets early on in my career. My dad was a goalie, and he had an eye for picking out some things that worked well for me. My first pair of pads, I guess I'd say, were a set of like the Coho Potvin ones, and then just to move from that into the Vaughn, like the Vision series and the Velocity, and I had a set of TPS ice caps, and I had the original Premier ones. So I kind of had a little bit of taste of all of the kind of iconic, like I guess generational goaltending brands and setups from an early age. So I would say that kind of shaped my interest in gear, my desire to uh, always have things that I felt like made me a better goalie. And I also separately on the side was always collecting player sticks along the way, and trying to take my teammates' broken sticks and throw blades in them for street hockey. And so that kind of, I would say, got my obsession with just like hockey gear in general kick-started, and now it's completely out of control.
Yes, based on the your backdrop there, we could probably assume that, but that's awesome. We love it. There's no
Yeah,
such thing as out of control when it comes to that, so that's good.
yeah, it's I'm swimming in gear now, but it's like it's a really cool thing to have just sets from along the way. There's a lot of things that I don't know, just going through these sticks earlier, I was laughing. I'm like, some of these things are like 15 plus years old now, and I remember where I got it, where I was, what I was doing, and it's just nice to have everything kind of as a keepsake. And I mean, they're nice sticks, they're worth something, but they're more just memories to me.
You know, It's funny you mentioned that because I've always wondered, and from your experience around other goalies, like do other goalies care about player sticks and player gear as much as you do? Like I've always been under the impression that they don't.
I
But
don't think so for the most part. I know some
so
guys.
you think you're like the only one
I don't know
who's
if I'm the only one, but I'd say I'm a bit of an anomaly with what I've kind of acquired, and you know, just my general like stance on gear, I guess, has always been for whatever reason people like value my opinion on what I think of certain gear. It kind of goes back to the GGSU days and just always having an opinion on something. And I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily like take credit as being like a trendsetter, but I've also had plenty of things that I've been on the forefront of that I then see a lot of people, interesting people, emulating to a degree. So it's I like to. My mind's always thinking about how to make things better as far as like my gear goes, my setup goes, and even though I've kind of taken the time off this year, I have not stopped tinkering with my own things and just trying to be prepared for if and when the call comes again.
It's awesome. So you're talking about like collecting sticks from like teammates and people in general. Do you treat it like, is it in the NHL? Is it like in your time there? Is it like NBA, NFL jersey swap situation? Like, do you go up to guys? Are you able to do that kind of stuff, or is it more like brokering deals on the side and all that kind of stuff?
I feel like that's more like if you're if you're like a high end talent, I feel like you can kind of mortgage that to get whatever you want from other guys in the league. If you're just a guy who's kind of happy to be there, like I always was, uh, I don't think you have as much like sway or negotiating power. But I would say, I mean, you play with a lot of good guys, and to them, it's like a stick or whatever is nothing. But because they get a ton of them, but it's cool when you know you have the ability to like look back on it and be like, yeah, I used to stand in a stick room with Patrick Marlowe, and like be like there's guys that are first ballot Hall of Famers that care just as much about like uh you know their weapons as you do. Like
Yeah.
it's their tool to like be great, and feel like a lot of the best players like really care about what they have in their hands, and so it's just a cool thing to like share with guys, I guess, is like to just be a guy who loves his gear. Some guys don't care, but I just feel like the greats usually can tell every little difference, and they're pretty meticulous about like what they want and what they use.
yeah,
Was there like there was a guy that, or was there anybody that you asked, or you were like, I'm just gonna shoot my shot and try to get
Yeah.
it? And was there any that you were like, holy crap, I can't believe that I got that guy's stick?
The only guy I ever asked really for anything from was Alex Ovechkin after we beat them with the Kings, which I felt like was kind of a touchy time to ask. But Jonathan Quick was the other goalie for us that game, and like I guess that's a kind of another aside of my story is like being backed up by Jonathan Quick for a game in the NHL, and also like backing up Marc Andre Fleury and coming in for a game. You can't like kind of pick two better goalies to have an
Oh yeah.
experience or like cross paths with at that level. But Quickie asked for a stick from Ovechkin after that game anyways, just because guys like that do collect, like they do want to have stuff from the greatest players that they've played against. Like I'm sure they have their own quiet amazing collections of sticks and memorabilia. But Quickie was asking, and I knew the Washington like locker room assistant from our World Junior team way back when. And so I shot my shot and I was like, hey, is there any chance I could get a signed stick as well? So to get one of those after, blanking them and beating them was a pretty cool experience. And it's kind of come full circle in a way, as like, I don't know. I don't know if this is insider information or whatever, but like he's obviously been using a different stick now for the last year or so. And
Yeah, since like last January, I believe. Yeah.
yeah, and I've been fortunate enough to be on the ride with that company for the last couple of years now to see their trajectory. And so like just to see him go from, the stick that he couldn't score on me with to this other stick that he's red hot with now, I'm like, I have to imagine he would have scored if he would have had that in his hands at that point. But kind of fortunate the way that everything works out like that.
That's awesome. That was
Yeah.
amazing.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. Well, we've got a bunch of other stuff about your time in the NHL to get to, but before we go there, I just wanted to bring it back to, your minor hockey career, and you mentioned the Chicago Mission uh, beforehand. And you were fortunate enough to play for them in your minor days. So, what was that experience like, and how did it help you progress? And what about equipment at that level, with a team like the Mission? How much of that is provided? How much of the equipment is provided for goalies at that level, or are you pretty much, on your own, even
Yeah,
at
I
that level?
mean, growing up, like the only set of equipment I feel like I ever really borrowed was at the YMCA in Elmhurst when I was just learning how to play goalie. From the time that I was like in house league and mites and whatever, I played at the Chicago Blues until I got to Mission and Pee Wees. But yeah, you're always buying your own gear. Um, every man for himself. Like it's the budget varies at different times based on what your parents have available to outfit you. So yeah, I feel like I was pretty fortunate early on. I got a couple custom sets early in my career, kind of like squirts age, pee wee age. And then as I started to age and get bigger and like financially things tightened up, it was more I had to use kind of like senior level gear rather than the pro level stuff, even though I was playing AAA at the highest level and had to make things work and kind of had to learn how to feel the puck a little bit and just battle through with whatever you have and just learn the value of like what this gear costs and what the cost to play overall is. I know now that there's more scholarship type based things for kids that can't really afford to play or pay, for whatever AAA hockey is and that are good enough to play. So I think initiatives like that are important. I think you can never really figure out who you are as a goalie or as a player overall until you have access to as good of gear as everybody else. So I commend all the kids that don't get the $400 stick and don't get the $2,000 skates and whatever, and they're out there competing with everybody else that has the best stuff because sometimes you got to battle with what you got. So yeah, I would say some kids have truly impressive sets of gear at this point, and then some kids you can tell they're making do with what they have. And yes, I think that's something that you see at every level of hockey below the NHL, though, which is kind of you don't imagine that, I guess.
Right. But I was just like, because I know there's some AAA programs out there that like get at least like a minimum, they'll get gloves for like the players. I just wasn't sure if it was any different from the goaltenders, but you pretty much answered that. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, you're 100% right there in terms of how some are different than others, and unfortunately, it's a struggle for some. But hats off to the ones who do keep grinding and who do keep battling, no matter what they have.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough too because it's like I grew pretty quickly, right? So to I went from 33-inch pads to 37-inch pads in like, you know, 12 months. So it's
Oh,
like you go
goodness.
through 2, 3 sets of pads in like a calendar year. Eventually, your parents are like, come on, man. Like, you gonna stop growing or what? Like, this is getting crazy. Yeah, skates was another hard one. It's like I have size 13 feet now. Like, think about all the various sizes of skates you had to have along the way to get there. It's like, um, yeah, I don't think I had a pro level of skate um, until I got to junior in Guelph. Like we won nationals U18 with Mission, and I think I was in a pair of Reebok 5K skates. Just like they were comfy, they were like slippers, but I went to put them on like 2 years after that because I needed a pair of skates in a pinch, and I almost broke my ankles. I was like, I don't know how I played in these things.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
so it's yeah, I don't know. I think that's one thing where like years like kind of interesting. Like you can have a really great run in something and then not use it for a year or two and use something new and then have to go back to it in a pinch and it's like the worst thing you've ever put on and it's like I don't know how I used this before. But yeah, it's like I said, sometimes you just gotta battle with what you have and let the talent shine through and hopefully you make it to a level where they buy you nicer stuff. That's
Right,
always the dream.
right, right. So piggybacking off of that, then you already alluded to it, but you obviously moved on to the Guelph Storm, and I guess fortunately for you, then it did get to a point where you had your team buying you gear. But first and foremost, was was D1 college ever a consideration for you? I feel like it's an obligatory question to ask the American kids. Not saying obviously that the OHL isn't a bad decision. It obviously never is, and it definitely worked out for you. But I'm always just curious, what the options are for the Americans.
So, yeah, I mean, I always want to play college hockey. It's just one of those things where you, if nobody wants to, you can't do it. So
Oh,
it was,
forgive me for asking that. No,
no, no,
no.
no.
Yeah,
It's a hundred
yeah.
percent like it was just one of those situations where I think it had to do a lot with colleges were just committing to like older goalies. So I don't think anybody was really getting a look at 16, 17 to commit to an NCAA school at that point. Like you had to put in a couple of years in the USHL and you had to kind of pay your dues and you were going to come in probably around 19, 20 years old as a freshman and then have to compete with some kids that are older than you for playing time. And there's only 30 something games a year. And uh, I, I got the opportunity to play major junior hockey, and I had a team that was very clear about the fact that they wanted me from the first time that they scouted me, and they ended up drafting me. And I got passed over in the USHL draft, in the futures draft, and so it was just one of those things where it was like you got to go where you're wanted. It wasn't necessarily the route that I'd always planned for myself. And even once I got on that path, it didn't go the way that I really intended it to work out. But it was every kid's dream is to get to go to Canada and play hockey and play in an environment where everybody eats, sleeps, and breathes it, and it's the biggest deal in town. And you know, I wouldn't say they did a hard sell by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just going there and experiencing it and seeing what it was, which I did like towards the end of my U18 year at Mission. I went for one weekend just to see a game and be on the ice there and experience it. And it was hard for me to want to like go play in the middle of Iowa or somewhere for the next couple of years after seeing what Canadian Major Junior Hockey was like and kind of how they took care of the players and what they were offering as far as a school package and 68 games a year compared to 30 something. I've never played hockey to be like a gym rat, I guess I'd say. And I just saw that if you went to Major Junior, you were just going to play hockey. Like you're going to be in the gym, you're going to improve whatever, but you're not just playing 2 games a weekend. Like you're on a full pro hockey schedule basically from a young age. And the way that it worked out, if you want to play pro hockey, like you go to the OHL and you cut your teeth for 3 years and you take a stab at it. And if it doesn't work, you come home, you go to school. Like it seemed like a no-brainer kind of low risk scenario to me when I compared it to what college hockey was offering, which was to me nothing. So like I really only had one option, so I went for it.
It almost seems like too like you got to have the belief of like everything happens for a reason, and it's like you have your aspirations of going to the NHL and stuff like that, and you hear the stories about how goalies take a little bit longer to develop as is, and then if you imagine comparing, like you said, 30 games versus 68 games, the opportunity to get more reps in and try to speed up that development for you. I mean, it seems like like you said, it didn't like happen the way you envisioned, but it's like almost better because it took you to that level that so many people wish they can go.
Yeah, it was super fortuitous. It was, I mean, and that's the other thing too, is like I was a smart kid in high school. Like I could have went to any of the schools based on test scores. It wasn't that I couldn't get in anywhere or something like that. It was, which oftentimes is why guys go to the OHL, is because they can't get into a specific school or whatnot. But they just did a really good job of explaining what the potential opportunity was there. The goalie coach that was there at the time was very understanding and did a really good job of explaining exactly what their intention and plan was with me. And he was super supportive in the sense that I committed to go to Guelph, and then they ended up taking another goalie my age in the import draft that summer. So I entered basically as the third goalie, showed up kind of as a practice goalie, and he just, was like, practice is your game right now. Hang in there, stick around. We'll figure something out, and the best guy is going to end up playing. So I only played like 3 games before Christmas that year, and it was kind of looking a little bleak, but somehow managed to climb like the central scouting rankings and get on the radar of some people. And I had a really good second half of the season. I think I played like another 20 games or whatever as a rookie, and it was enough to garner enough attention to get me an interview with an NHL team. And the only NHL team I talked to thankfully took me, so it's one of those things where a lot of coincidences kind of had to line up, but that's why you play the game. That's why you show up. You never know what can happen.
Most definitely. And we're gonna get into that NHL team um in a little bit here. But before we do that, just sticking with golf a little bit and back into the gear side of it. So from some research that we were doing, it looked like for the majority of your time in Guelph, about 3 seasons or so, that you were always in Reebok stuff. Um, and we were talking to our previous guest, Jake Kugler, about gear from a player's perspective in the CHL. But how about from a goalie perspective? And was Reebok your choice, or was all that was available to you, or give us the lowdown on how you ended up in Reebok all the time in Guelph?
So thankfully, it was my choice. I was wearing the Premier 2 pads in U18, and I had an X Pulse glove. And then previous to that, I had like the senior level of the Premier Series 2 stuff, the 8Ks. And prior to that, like I had the Premier 1s and Pee-wees, like I was saying. So I was always kind of like more of a flat face pad, like new age butterfly style pad. I don't know. I guess you could lump me into the category of being a blocking goalie, but I always felt like I was a pretty athletic version of something like that. Like I didn't completely abandon, making saves or my reactions or whatever, but I definitely always appreciated like the stability and comfort of the Reebok style pad. Um, and yeah, I mean, CCM Reebok has been aligned with the CHL for 10 years now. Like they do a good job outfitting all the players. And before I was even, in town, they wanted to get my sizes and my colors and my specs. And I remember cooking all this stuff up and like spending time like drawing stuff up on the computer, and I sent it to CCM and they're like, yeah, we don't do it like that. You pick in the color zones and you tell us the colors, we send you the gear. It is what it is. Like we'll put your name on the side of it and you'll love it. And I like the gear a lot, and I wasn't going to complain about getting sets paid for me and getting to order whatever I wanted. So honestly, a dream come true. Think it was like my first mask that I'd had painted since, mites or squirts. So just cool to get to work with a mask painter and bring a vision to life. Like I always, that mask and beyond, I would always hand draw like my mask templates and what I kind of wanted to do in a given year. Because I felt like it gave the painter really no room to like screw up or take artistic freedoms with it. I'd like draw out exactly what I wanted, and I'd be like, okay, now paint this on a mask. And I feel like that was something that was pretty unique to me. Like I see like with all the wraps and generic kind of team stuff now, like I don't really see anybody designing many like individual pieces anymore. And if they do, it's kind of fully the discretion of the painter. So it's I just like to pride myself first. Like I was just always an artist growing up. I always loved drawing and designing gear, and it's just what I did with my free time. So to actually get to a level where you're able to do that, like it was a dream come true for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like you said multiple times there, it's what all young hockey players would pretty much give up anything for, to have the opportunity to have somebody come to them and be like, hey, what gear do you want? Jake, our previous guest, actually said something right along the lines of that. So that's awesome. And this is more not necessarily limited to your time in Guelph. This is just, all throughout your years as a professional goaltender. One thing off the top of my head that I feel like is the case, but you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. But it sure seems like goaltenders go through skates a lot less than players do. Like I know off the top of my head, Stuart Skinner has been wearing the same skates for a while. Marc-Andre Fleury has too. I believe Connor Hellebuck has as well. Where do you fall in that conversation? Did you go through skates a lot, and do you think that that's true? That majority of goaltenders don't typically go through a lot of skates, or what kind of insight do you have there?
I mean, I I guess through like junior, I like you're one pair a year, you know what I mean? Like by the time you get to the end of the year, I feel like everything's sort of broken down and a little bit beat up. Like it's not to say that you couldn't keep playing with them until they completely fall apart, but if you have the opportunity to get a fresh set every year and there's new technology, I would always be interested in it. Um, I was fortunate to be around for kind of the dawn of the VH true skate.
Well,
Uh,
that's right. Yeah.
so I went from CCM boots and like the CCM cowling to when I got to pro, I put the CCM boot and the Vertex cowling, the Bauer one, which was new at the time, which was fine, but it ended up really like caving in the bottom of my skates and it made my skates like extremely painful to wear. So I was struggling with that for a little bit, and then right around that time, the VH boot came out, and I was like, well, this seems like a godsend. So I got into those, really enjoyed them. Got the player skates from them. So I just became kind of a VH true skate guy from there. I used their one piece skate for a number of years until they kind of came out with their new cowlingless two-piece skate, and then I moved into that, and I got a lot of pairs of those throughout my last couple of years with the Marlies and the Leafs, and teams are pretty quick to buy you skates at the AHL and NHL level. I don't necessarily like switching from like something I'm comfortable with to something new in the middle of the season if I don't have to. But like I said, it's tough to say no to a fresh pair of skates when they're offering. So yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of goalie skates at this point. I actually have my like last pair right here. I didn't know if I was gonna need to show something off at some point, but
Show it
yeah,
off. Let us see
there,
it. Put it in front of the camera.
yeah. So I don't know. I've got all kinds of things going on, but it's just the Bauer Vertex holder, kind of the black coated steel, um, and then just like a traditional kind of white felt tongue, all the white toe cap, and I just have a pretty like interesting like lacing methodology, I guess I'd say. Everybody everybody's like trying to emulate the connect skate now. I feel like everybody wants that like forward lean or whatever. So basically what I ended up doing is I have like I don't know if you remember like the old CCM Reebok, they had the lace lock, which was on
Yeah.
like the pumps.
Yep.
So basically, I do my own like lace lock with the actual lace itself here, and I kind of wrap it through so it cinches down. And then I have this. I've been using these black tactical rubber bands that I like found on Amazon. They're just like thick black rubber bands, but I've been using them for various equipment stuff, I guess I'd say, over the last, you know, year, just out of boredom and exploration and whatever. So basically, I tie the skate at this point, and I have this like rubber band over the front, and it allows me to kind of lean into the skate and the tongue to move, but it also returns and like stays pretty like flush when you're not leaning forward into it.
Oh, very
So
cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of takes like any lace bite out. And yeah, it just gives you the feel of maybe like being able to lean a little bit more forward into your skate without having to transition to the kind of plasticky ski boot style skate that the Connect is. I'm a purist. I appreciate like traditional, like I want to tie my laces, you know, I just, it's just a me thing, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be the last goalie to ever use the leather strap, and I don't care. Like that's what goalie pads are to me. You know, I think I love technology as much as the next guy, but like I also there's just some things you don't mess with, you know. So I don't know. That's just kind of my stance on the whole thing. But I have plenty of stuff that I have been just cooking up and messing around with, and I just my goal at this point, I'm older, right? So I just try to take as much stress off of my body. When you're 20, you don't really think about it, but when you're 30 and everything starts to hurt, like you gotta make it a little easier on yourself.
Yeah.
Amen.
You don't have to tell us about that.
Yeah.
But no, that's super cool. I mean, like in from what I gathered there, you didn't get that idea from anybody with the rubber band. You didn't get
Oh
that
no,
idea from anybody else. That's you.
that's that's just a lot of sitting here thinking and just I mean general just problem solving. Like a lot of gear is
Yeah,
problem solving. Like if you have a problem with your gear, it's like what are you gonna do about it? You just gonna
right.
sit here and think about how you don't like it, or are you gonna like figure out a solution to make it better?
Right, no, and I feel like that's like something that could come in handy for a lot of people, a lot of goaltenders. And I mean,
I've been
just
gatekeeping my ideas a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Like I
okay,
don't
all
really,
right.
no,
Yeah.
I don't like I want people to figure it out on their own. You know, I've shared kind of little hints of that on like GGSU at points with people, and I have uh, I have like the rubber bands kind of implemented with the toe ties my pads too, and how I attach my chest protector to my pants at this point. So it's like I've kind of reimagined just I guess not the gear itself, but how it integrates with your body and like how you're able to move with it on you. Just trying to take some of the like natural resistance points and make them a little less restrictive, I guess, on your movement. But yeah, just tinkering around, just being a goalie nerd. You know, it's a hard life. You just don't stop thinking about this stuff. Like I'm not even playing, and I want to order new gear right now. So it's I definitely have a problem.
No, we
That's
don't call that we don't call those problems around here. So you're all good. This is your safe zone when it
yeah.
comes to
Well, that's
that.
why I'm
So
being honest. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. All right. Well, before we go, that was great, by the way. But going back to you, kind of alluded to, draft day and whatnot. This isn't obviously gear related, but take us back through that process. And you don't have to go in depth on what the interview was like necessarily, but leading up the months before, you're the seventh round pick, but before that. What was draft day and in those few days like for you? Were you locked in? Was it nerve-wracking, or were you a bit more chill after that interview? Just, take us through that process.
I mean, I guess it honestly starts like earlier in the year. Like I said, like I was in Guelph and I really wasn't playing much. I didn't really even know that the NHL draft was that year. Like coming into the OHL, like it wasn't even really on my radar that it was like my draft year or that it even mattered that it was my draft year. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to play hockey. Like, it's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, I got there obviously like battling with a couple other goalies. We had Brandon Foote, who's 91, so 2 years older than me. He was an awesome dude to be around, one of my best friends on the team, and just overall great like influence on me, and just made be. It's just nice to have a goalie partner that makes things fun. Um,
Definitely.
and then we had Matej Machovsky too, who was a really talented goalie my age, and um, he was much higher regarded as far as like the draft rankings went. So when they released the original draft rankings, he was like third or fourth or amongst North American goalies, and I was like an honorable mention, like 40 names down the list, and I was like, it's. I just found it interesting because I was like, um, they know who I am. Just being on the list at all, I was like, they know who I am. Like that's crazy in and of itself, right? To just be recognized, I guess, amongst Central Scouting. And so I just really took it upon myself, like from that point, to try to climb that list however I could. So I kind of had it in my mind on the second half of the season. Like if I can just put really good starts together when I go out there, like maybe I have a legitimate chance to move up this list. And my goalie coach at the time there, Mike Parson, he gave me some really good advice. He was like, you know what, you're not gonna play every game. But what you are doing is you're going to dress every game. So you have to go out and you have to have as good of a warm up as you do every night. Warm up like you're playing. You know, have a certain intensity about like being on the ice every game, and just try to be the best goalie on the ice in warm ups. And he's like, you're not going to believe this, but people will notice. And I was like, that was a mentality that I kind of took forward with me, was like, just be the best that you can every time that there's eyes on you. Like people are there watching. So just try to make big saves whenever you can. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I played well down the stretch, and I moved up to like 17th or something on the draft rankings. So going into the actual draft, I was like, absolutely no shot am I getting picked, at 17 of North American goalies, like let alone the skaters and goalies from around the world. So um, there was a couple other kids on our team that were draft eligible. So there was always teams kind of in and out interviewing throughout the season, especially in the second half, like trying to get a gauge on how kids were and who they were and whatever. And one day after practice, like my coach was like, yeah, somebody from Toronto's here and like wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, go see what's up, I guess. And it ended up being Mike Palmetier, who I knew of just because my dad was a full right goalie, and he was a big fan of his, and he always told me about the the manner in which he played the game, and how he was an exciting goalie. And I just read his story, and I related to it as a kid. He was just a guy that like loved playing goalie and was passionate about it, but at the same time was there to have fun, and was kind of more lighthearted about it in comparison to guys like Glenn Hall and guys that were puking before every game and
Yeah.
traumatized. Like Mike
Yeah.
Palmetier just seemed to have a good time with it. So yeah, I walked into the room and I saw him and I was like, oh man, you're Mike Palmetier. And he was like, why does this 17-year-old kid know exactly who I am? Basically, like, must know something about, the history of goaltending. And, we just had a good conversation. And I didn't even really see it as like anything but a courtesy, really. I didn't ever think of it as anything but him just like being there interviewing a couple of other kids on our team and like getting around to talking to me. But yeah, draft day itself, you know, you watch the first round, you watch a lot of guys that you played with, a lot of guys that I played on the U.S. World Junior team that year with, or not that year, but like just guys that you grow up playing with, you know,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and you know their names, and they're going first round in the NHL, and you're like, that's insane, like that's crazy. And then you know, day two fires up, and you know, second, third, fourth round go by, and you're starting to see a lot of other guys that you know that you're like, you know, that's awesome, like good for them, happy for them. But you start to wonder, like, you know, there's not that many picks left. Like, you know, what's going on? You know, is where do I fit into the whole thing? I guess is what I'd say. Like, I never really anticipated going, obviously, first or any of the higher rounds, but yeah, round 6 ended, and I just got like dejected. I was like, I'm going to bed. Like, you know, this sucks. Like, I've watched all my buddies, and you know, I've watched a lot of guys that I know get picked, and I'm really happy for them. But deep down inside, I'm like, you know, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't go. And yeah, I was laying down for about 20 minutes, and I got a phone call from my agent, and he's like, "The Toronto Maple Leafs just picked you," and I was like, "What?" And I knew my parents were like, I was half asleep too. So it was like my parents were downstairs and watching the whole draft and whatever. And I just heard them scream. And I was like, oh, I guess that's confirmed. You know, I guess that's the real thing. I better get out of bed and go see what it's all about. So yeah, it was memorable in that sense. Maybe I was a little quick to quit on myself, but yeah, it's just it's an emotional day. Like, you work your whole life to kind of get the attention or recognition of a team like that, and to be able to do it in Toronto, and then, you know, God, looking back on it, putting in 8 or 9 years with the organization was a pretty crazy ride, you know.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
I feel like most seventh round picks don't get much past the first year or two within an
Right.
organization. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of those things where you just get your foot in the door, and you don't move it. You know, you keep kind of clawing your way in, and try to integrate yourself as much as you can into the organization, and give as much as you can back. But yeah, it was the same thing sort of with the OHL draft. Like, I didn't go till the 8th round, and uh, I just went and played roller hockey with my buddies that day. I was like, I'm, you know, probably not getting drafted. So uh, I guess the have low expectations, and you know, everything kind of surpasses whatever expectations you might have had if you just like let things play out.
And then all of a sudden, well, going back to that day in 2011, all of a sudden you're packing your bags for development camp. I imagine it was just like a few days later, or
Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, like I feel
or a
like the
week or
development
so.
camps at that point maybe were a little bit later in the summer, like a little more like second week of July.
Ah, okay,
So
yeah.
you had like 2 weeks to pull it together. But yeah, I mean, going to development camp was, I guess I don't even really remember it much besides you throw on a practice jersey with an NHL logo on it, and it feels a little bit different. Go try to make as many saves as you can. Like, I felt like I always did well in those kind of camp sitting situations, like early on in my career. Um, I will say, like, I always struggled with my weight. Like, I'm from Chicago. I like to eat. So always was like a lot of judgment about like my body composition. But then I'd go out and play, and a lot of that would be like overlooked, I guess I'd say, until it wasn't. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of those camps, like, it was just interesting. It was an interesting time in that organization. Kind of a lot of old school guys around, and some good voices. But yeah, as a young kid, you're like, this is getting really real, really quick.
Yeah.
So I'm not just a kid playing hockey anymore. Like I have like bosses basically that I have to answer to now. So it was interesting though. Like Francois Allaire was the goalie coach at that point. So you get drafted, and all of a sudden he's, well, I want you to do this, this, and this now that you're part of our team. And you're like, well, I've never done those things before to play goalie. And he's like, yeah, well, now you're going to do it, And that's kind of the way that it goes, is like, I remember specifically that those big Swiss knee pads that Jaguar would wear, that had like kind of like a carbon fiber shield front on it. And, they were these big bulky knee pads. And he's like, I had I had made my own knee pads out of an old pair of Vic elbow pads that my dad had laying around in the basement, and that's what I was wearing in junior to start until I got hit in the knee in practice one day, and they're like, "Okay, you can't wear your little foam knee pads anymore. Like, you have to get into some actual knee pads." So to go from those, which are just like kind of for the like breaking your landing more than actually making saves with, to these massive bulletproof knee pads that you're literally like, he didn't even want you putting your pads towards the puck anymore. He wanted you to just be soaking pucks to the knee with these massive knee pads. And it was just a very different approach to goaltending. And as a kid, like, you're like, okay, I thought you picked me because you wanted me, not to like turn me into something that you wanted to turn me into or whatever. But it's all, once you get the NHL logo involved, it's a different ball game for sure. It's the level of seriousness kicks up a notch or two for sure.
Definitely. So your first two full seasons as a pro, you spent time going back and forth between the Marlies and the Solar Bears. Quite a few shots of you in Orlando with your Marlies colored gear. What was the turnaround like for the ECHL to get you get your pads for Orlando, and so you get your famous like claw mark Orlando pads?
So those are actually just pad skins that
they're just wrapped. Okay.
Yeah. So that was another thing that I guess I was kind of on like the forefront of, just thanks to GGSU, was, pad skins and pad wrap were two kind of competing brands at that point, and it was all about the recoloration of your gear and stuff like that. So yeah, you're property of Toronto, and then you get sent down to Orlando. Obviously the color scheme's a little different, but I had a lot of fun wrapping my pads down there. There's only a couple pictures of these ones, but I actually did one wrap job of I had 4 different colors in each color zone of the Reebok graphic that I had to cut by hand. And it took me like 3 hours to do at least. And I think I played like 4 or 5 games in them, and then got called up to Toronto, and they made me rip everything off.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I played 2 games there, and then I got sent right back down. So that's what kind of set me up for the claw mark one. Was like, okay, this time I'm not going to hand cut everything. I'm going to have him hand like him cut it with the laser and just send me the individual pieces, and I'll just do one background color and then do the claw marks over it. But yeah, that's just some fun that I decided to have with it, knowing that I was going to be down there, and that was kind of my team for the year. I was like, I would like to try to match it as well as I can, and yeah, it's just once again one of those times in goaltending where like that sort of stuff was cutting edge. Like it was years before the Digiprint era and years
Yeah.
before like I don't know, before everybody was just going all white with their gear all the time. So I just got to make do with what you have. I mean, to speak to goaltending in the ECHL, if you are not on an NHL contract or an AHL contract, you're not getting gear from those teams in any normal situation unless you're a guy that's been there for a considerable amount of time. So I just playing in the East Coast League and having goalie partners that like weren't affiliated with NHL club, like you would watch them battle in some pretty beat up gear for a good amount of time. So I always tried to kind of like share the wealth, or if somebody really needed something, I would just like kind of give them what I had left over, because oftentimes the teams didn't really take care of the goalies maybe as much as you would expect.
That's insane. I didn't know that. I mean, and like,
Yeah,
I guess it kind of makes sense because ECHL teams don't have near, the budget and the money, but they just the goalie equipment is way more expensive, so they're just like, well, you guys are,
you
not
got what you
properly.
got.
Yeah, exactly.
A
Oh my
lot of
God, that's
kids would
insane.
use a lot of kids would use the stuff their last set they got in college, and they'd use it for 2 or 3 years,
Wow.
and you know, at a certain point, it's toast. Like you're still playing pro hockey, so yeah, I mean, it was a blessing being on an NHL contract down in the ECHL is what it really boils down to. Because if you're on an ECHL deal, even if you have a pedigree of playing at a certain level before, they don't really owe you anything technically. So
Sorry.
yeah, I even when I returned to Orlando a couple of years ago, I made sure like I brought a lot of my own stuff, just knowing like you gotta you gotta stock up yourself, and not really rely on getting anything once you're there. And Orlando took great care of me. That's not a slight to them at all. It's a realization that okay, like I'm a goalie, I need certain gear, like I'm gonna have to be the one to provide it, and that's just the way it goes down there.
That's two guests now that we've had that speak pretty highly of the Solar Bears. So
Yeah, I actually
good to
played
know.
with
Yeah.
Cougs down there, so
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah.
we
I
had a
do know
good
who
time
you are.
together.
Yeah. All right. Well, now I want to get right into it. In terms of your NHL debut with the Toronto Maple Leafs in November 2015. I'm sure at least a few people who are watching this are gonna be able to recall it. You get a shutout. The Leafs win 3-0. You had the iconic post game interview where you mentioned that you couldn't describe the feeling. Well, I mean, can you describe it now, this many years later?
Yeah, I don't know. I was actually talking to somebody about it like earlier this week, and it was just one of those things where like that wasn't ever really the intention. It's funny though, because like every game I want to get a shutout. So it's
Right.
like that's like at every level always like that's always been the desire. Like I don't want to get scored on at all. I want to have a great game. And it's unrealistic, but it's I feel like what what drove me as a goalie is I always wanted to see how close to perfect I could get. So, yeah, just going into that game, I just wanted to play well enough to get another opportunity there. And I felt that everything just kind of came together that night for me. It was just it was an interesting day, interesting time. Just in my career, in my life, like I was a part of a really close team with the Toronto Marlies, and we had a lot of fun. And I'd gotten off to a pretty good start of the year. The Leafs were not in as good of a position, and
No, yeah.
you
That
know,
was the year just before Matthews. I remember watching them like they were like, I mean, they had like Morgan Riley and Kadri as like the bright spots, and that was pretty much it.
yeah,
And then yeah,
there was. I mean, I don't think their intention was to win a ton of hockey games that year,
right, right.
but it was just interesting because I came into training camp that year having played like pretty much the entire season previously in Orlando, and I was like fifth in the depth chart for goalies, and we ended up trading a goalie in training camp, and then I just had a pretty good start to the season with the Marlies, and just got more time playing from that. And then James Reimer ended up getting hurt, so I ended up coming up and backing up Jonathan Bernier. And he was having a pretty rough go of it too at that point. And I think that Mike Babcock was the head coach, and I think it was more of I think it was more him just shaking things up and being like, throw whoever in net at this point because whatever we're doing is not working. And it was just he was sending a message, to organizationally, and yeah, it was the moment I've waited for my whole life. So I really didn't care what the circumstances were. From the time I got drafted by Toronto, I always dreamed of throwing that jersey on and playing a game for that team. I'd gotten tastes of it in the rookie tournament, playing just with the prospects and whatever. And it just got very real very quickly. Like I said, go one weekend, you're playing with the Marlies, playing with all your buddies, just having a good time. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're starting in the NHL. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's why I'm here. Like I forgot that was potentially in play. So, yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, you just show up and you stay in the moment and you enjoy all the perks of being there. And, yeah, I always, so I kind of tell a story like it was an off day for the Marlies the day that I was starting, and we would kind of hang out at my apartment and play
The day of your
MLB.
debut? Sorry.
Yeah, the day of
The
my
day of your debut.
debut was
Yeah.
like an off day for the Marlies.
Right, right. Okay.
So I had, we would play MLB the show like at my apartment. We'd have like a bunch of guys over and play video games or whatever. And my roommate at the time was Justin Hall. So he had a bunch of the boys over, and like I came home from morning skate before that game, and there's 7 or 8 guys on the couch like screaming and playing a game and whatever. And I like walk in and they like whip their heads around and they're all like quiet and they're like, "Do you want us to leave?" And I was like, "Nah, like just keep doing what you're doing. Like I don't want to disturb the peace. Like I don't want to disturb any of this energy." And they're like, "Oh, like we know you got to play tonight." And I'm like, just like let me eat my pregame with you guys, and let's just enjoy it. And yeah, it was kind of a funny thing because yeah, I don't know. I feel like I am pretty like tense about like playing, or I can be, but it was just like just the energy of a bunch of guys that are cheering for you, being around was like a nice calming thing to experience on a day like that. And I just remember uh, pressing like the down button for my elevator when I was leaving for the game at my building, and I was like, when you press the up button, things are going to be way different. And then I remember getting home that night after everything, and having dinner with my parents and just being through everything, and then hitting the up button on the elevator and just being like, I didn't think it was going to go like that. Like I knew things were going to be a little different, but I didn't know it was going to go like that. So, yeah, it was, I don't know, I was only 22. It was a lot in a little bit of time at a young age. And, just really looking back on it, thankful for the opportunity and grateful for the moment. And, um, it was, it was as lively as I've seen that building, ever, you know,
Yeah.
especially,
Yeah,
I don't know. I just appreciate the Toronto fans that were there that night, and people that tell me, I was at your first game, and or I watched it on TV and I couldn't believe it. Like the amount of stories that I've gotten from people, guys that I've played with after the fact that are like, I still remember your first game. Like the fact that you're able to create such a like profound memory for so many people through a performance was really cool.
That's kind of what I was getting at earlier, like that the team, there wasn't a whole lot going for them, but like then all of a sudden it's like here's this guy Garrett Sparks making his debut tonight, and it's against the Oilers. Um, I don't think McDavid was playing. I think he was
He'd
hurt.
broken his collarbone,
Yes.
thank
Okay.
God.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Right. Right. But anyway,
but
forget about
hey,
him.
what I say all the
Like
time is they still had Leon Draisaitl, and they still had
yeah.
Taylor Hall, and they still had Jordan
Eberle,
Eberle.
you made that save
Yeah,
on Eberle. Yeah. And
but
then like
they had some guns.
right, right, and
And
that
the
that had
other
to be
thing,
like the biggest game for the Leafs that season, and you're the only one in the first goaltender in Leafs history to get a shutout in his debut, which is like another side of it. Like that
yeah.
was definitely the best game of the season for him.
Well, and I guess yeah, getting the shutout was obviously like my intention and my goal and like what I wanted to see happen for sure. But I had no idea about the context of what it meant historically within the franchise. So Lauren Howe, who was the interviewer that night, when she said that, I was completely taken off guard by it,
Yeah.
and just added to the general like emotional nature of the night for me, I guess. And I think just in that moment, you realize you're capable of doing things that nobody else has ever done. So it's like it's just it was just a really cool moment for me. And yeah, I don't know. I've just always been very emotional and romantic about the game of hockey. So to be able to do something of that caliber, it definitely just kind of got to me.
Good stuff, man. That's awesome. That pregame story reminds me of like it's funny how you said that, just like keep things going, the way they are, and just keep moving forward. It just reminded me. I think when David Pastrnak was on Spittin' Chicklets one time, he said that there was one game he was leaving TD Garden after morning skate, and he had his pregame meal with him in like a container, and like he spilled it like getting off the elevator or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, like what am I gonna do? I don't have time to get like another meal." So he just went and ate like friggin' Subway before the game, and then he scored 4 goals that night. So
Yeah.
like in the no with your Marlies guys are like, "You want us to leave so you can take your nap?" You're like, "No, just keep doing what you're doing. Like this is all meant to be." But that's a great story. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was like I said, it was a really cool night. I was lucky, my parents were able to be there, and just like I don't know, it's just like playing in the NHL obviously is a dream. And uh it's funny because it's like nobody ever talks about my second game. We got absolutely, for the lack of a better term, we got shit kicked in Winnipeg. I got my teeth kicked in. We lost like 6-2. And that was my real welcome to the NHL moment, because it was like everything that I dealt with previously was just some fantasy that you couldn't even, dream up. But there's a lot more to it, There's always another game, and you're only as good as that one. So, yeah, I don't know. I went on a bit of it was just a tumultuous season in general. I played like another 3 or 4 games, and then I got hurt in game, and it took me like 75 days to get back. And then I went back down to the Marlies, and I wasn't even playing really well there. And they kind of sent a message to me, and they sent me to Orlando to play a game against the or against the Everblades in Estero, Florida, which I find to be, one of the biggest challenges in the East Coast League. Is it's like the Battle of Alberta, but it's the Battle of Florida. So,
Oh, no way. It's that intense?
yeah, oh yeah,
Okay,
it's
wow.
definitely a rivalry, and it's just a difficult building to play in. And they're basically like, yeah, go down there and win a game, and you can come back, but if you don't, who knows what happens. So went down there, played a game, got to come back to the Marlies, and then we traded James Reimer to the San Jose Sharks, and I was back in the NHL to end the year. So I went through all 3 leagues in a month, and just ended up back in the NHL. But like you said, that team wasn't really constructed to win. So the last 20 something games of that season were kind of ugly for me. So I don't know. It's just like I said, like we talk about the fairy tale, intro to the whole thing, but it's a roller coaster playing in the NHL, and making it is one thing, but being able to have longevity and stay there is definitely another. So
Definitely. So talking about your pads, and like I know you are very like, I mean, everybody knows about your pads. Like I love the style that you bring to it. You talked about like you got your thrills from like designing your own pads and stuff like that. You started off with like the Trevor Kidd inspired Brian's pads. Um, how did you come to like, decide those are the ones you want to kick everything off with? And and how often did you, or how quickly were you ready to switch it up again after that, after using those?
so I like we alluded to before, like I used Reebok for a number of years, all through junior, and then my first couple of years pro. And I just got to the point where like I like the gear. There's nothing wrong with the gear. I just wanted to do more creatively. And I saw Brian's as a company that was doing a lot of like really cool stuff. So I reached out to Chris Joswiak, who was the pro rep at that time, and expressed an interest in kind of getting in the gear. And he was like, yeah, I mean, you should just come up to the factory in Kingsville and see what you think of everything, and let's figure something out. So me and my buddy, also a goalie, his name's Joey, we went on a road trip to the Brian's factory and did a tour of the factory, kind of saw the new gear. And I just felt like it was just a different level of customer service than I was like accustomed to. When I was with Reebok, like I obviously wasn't like a household name or anything, so you just kind of get dealt with as another player. But Brian's just seemed really interested in doing something creative and unique with me. And I'd signed up to play in this USA versus Canada like Stop Concussions tour, it was called. It was a 5-game tour through Australia. And so like I had this, I guess, 3-week event where I was gonna, have to be playing some goalie. I was the only goalie on the tour, and I told the guys at Brian's, I was like, I'm going on this thing. If you guys get me a set of pads before I leave for it, which was in like 2 weeks, I was like, if you get the pads there, I'll just bring those only to Australia and test them. Like, I will, give it a try, and we can go from there. And they're like, all right, sure, like let's try to make it happen. They're like, well, what do you want to do design wise? And we were in the Brian's factory, and there was a picture of Trevor Kidd, up in his iconic pads. And I was like, well, why don't we just emulate these, just for, timing's sake? Like, you kind of know what to do based on, the existing graphic, and just make a set of these and go from there. And I had a set of pads and a chest protector and gloves show up like 9 days later at my house. And I was like, all right, that's pretty impressive. Like, I definitely have to hold up my end of the bargain now. And so I took the pads to Australia with me, and it was just a very interesting tour. First game, we played at Rod Laver Arena, which is like a tennis arena. So the rink was like 3/4 size, and it was very hot. And
What Australian city was it in?
Rod Laver Arena, I want to say, is Melbourne.
Oh, okay. I wonder, I can't think if that's where they played that preseason game last year. But anyway, yeah.
Well, so we played in I honestly don't know which city it's in, but we played in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, and Brisbane, I want to say.
Okay, so full Australian tour. Yeah,
So
yeah.
like we went all over the country. We were there for 3 weeks. It
Right.
was actually bizarre. We actually had like an 8-day vacation in the middle of it too, because the first game we played in the tennis arena was like the first night after we landed, and then the second game we played was in Sydney the next night, so it was a back to back. But the game in Sydney was at All Phones Arena, which is what it was called at the time. But it's like a 60,000 person like indoor
Oh,
arena. So there was a real rink in that one. And I remember we lost the first game like 9-7. Like I said, it was like on a tiny little rink, and the other team had Brent Burns and like Matt Fratton and just a whole collection of guys. And we had a bunch of guys from like the SP and like kind of lower tier, like the Polish league, and like we just did not have the same caliber of players. So it was an interesting experience. But the next night, I remember we were in Sydney, and I was so jet lagged and exhausted from the first game that I slept like through my alarm for the game, and I was the only goalie, so nobody knew where I was, and I had to like get a taxi because I missed the bus. I had to like get a taxi to the arena, and I showed up like 40 something minutes before the game, maybe like crunch time, and I like they had a bunch of like Australian masseuses there on hand. And I just remember I got like a leg flush, and I got dressed for warm-ups, and I had like 60 something saves, and we won 6-1. And I remember I got player of the game, and I was like, dang, I kind of like these pads. Like I showed up out of nowhere, and these things are like kicking for me. So yeah, I don't know. I had like 3 weeks to try the pads, and played a couple good games in them, and shut out Brent Burns for 3 games in a row, even though he was like the main promotional guy that was on tour. He was a great dude to be in Australia with. Like,
Oh yeah.
everybody there was a beauty. Like, it was strictly hockey for fun. and for the promotion and the growth of the game. And it was just such a like cool futuristic thing to be a part of. But I think that the most interesting part of it is that's where I kind of got hooked on the Bryans, is because I didn't give myself the choice. I said this is what I'm going to use for 3 weeks, and came out the other side and dialed in a set for training camp that year, and they became pretty like iconic and recognizable from that. But it was a bit of a leap of faith at the beginning, and it was purely aesthetic. It had nothing to do with the performance of the pads. Like, I just wanted something cool. So
did you have like an exclusive agreement with them, or was it just kind of like, these are what I like, so I'm just gonna keep going back to them?
I had a promotional deal with them for a few years. It wasn't like a ton of money, but it was an exclusive agreement. Like when I was in the NHL, and they really did take good care of me. I really enjoyed wearing the pads for as long as I did, and I don't know. It just for me personally, like I really love the optic, which we ended up designing. That's the pad that I won the Calder Cup in. I felt like I had a really like integral role in designing that entire line with Brian's. Like a lot of my input, I felt like got put into the final design of the pad. So I felt like I was a pretty like important piece of what they were doing there for a while. And then honestly, as like time wore on, and Jaws left the company, and I, just wasn't playing at as high of a level or playing as well. That sort of started to fade. And I just generally, I had a couple nice sets in LA, and the new iconic pad just didn't work for me. Just from a design perspective, it didn't fit with my leg well, and I kind of battled my pads all last year. And I'm not going to blame the pads for my performance, but I just never felt really comfortable in my gear, and so I ended up. I've been wearing Vaughn for the last little bit, just skating privately, and I just always wanted a set of Vaughns as a kid. Like I always wanted a custom set of velocities with the like swirl graphic and whatever. And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and saw that like my career might be winding down a little bit. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy myself a set of Vaughns and just kind of fulfill a little bit of a childhood dream. So I've been rocking those, and honestly, I feel really good in them. Feel like I move completely differently as a goalie. And I'm interested to see what kind of goalie I would be in a game situation, with them on at this point. It's just interesting. It's like you get comfortable with something, and then you don't want to change, but at some point you kind of gotta make a decision and try something new if it's not working for you. But
Right.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It's like the pads that I wore in 2015 are a whole lot different than the ones that they're making in 2025.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
the evolution of everything, like I look at that checkerboard set now, and I'm like, this is like road hockey gear. Like like it's old school. It's
And
beyond
probably like 100 pounds heavier too.
yeah, I mean,
Like,
they're heavy. They're all leather straps. There's the glove. I'm like, I don't know how I didn't break my hand. But as cool as it gets stylistically. But yeah, things change quick in the world of goaltending and gear, and it's a constant evolution. So it's like if you're not on the cutting edge of it, you're almost falling behind. But then you look at guys who like Fleury, who's probably never really changed anything outside of updating the materials and stuff. Like Jonathan Quick's still in like a V2 style pad. It's like I really tip my cap to the guys that have been so consistent with their gear. Like it hasn't deviated at all. It's pretty impressive.
I got one more question for you, just about your pads. You've like we've mentioned many times here, you have the awesome designs. Like for me, particularly, one of my favorite setups you had was, I think it was the 2019 St. Pat's uh, pads, the brown and green.
Yeah.
Do you have an all-time favorite setup from your time? Does not just as, like the design wise, doesn't have to be like actual performance based.
Honestly, so I guess I really liked the set that I won the Calder Cup in from a design and performance base because I drew that graphic up myself and I was like, this thing slaps. Like I love this graphic.
Was it that the blue one that almost looked like a lightning bolt?
Yeah. So it's
Okay, yeah. I think I'm
the
seeing it
white with
right
like
here.
the
Yeah.
multiple blue tone sort of lightning bolt on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that I cooked up and I was like, this, I really like this design. And then the design that I did the year with the Leafs, I also drew that one up. And I thought that one was really cool because it had that same like element of the lightning bolt basically, but it also was like the silhouette of a leaf. So it was kind of like a dual graphic sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I thought those were pretty fun. I liked my Vegas set too. Um, I did some cool stuff with Vegas. I had a nice set with the Chicago Wolves. Um, really slept on was I did a really cool set in Calgary during the like COVID year. They're like also kind of a nod to Trevor Kidd. They were like the flames coming from like the boot of the pad and just like on
Mhm.
the old style Brian's graphic. Then they also like how Brian's has the little like triangle at the top of the thigh rise. I kind of turned that into like a mountain basically for Calgary, which I don't know. I just little tiny details that I hide within the pads like are always fun to me. Um, I did so I have these pads kind of sitting here, but my pads in LA, uh, I went back to the checkerboard, but I did an all white checkerboard with like multiple tones of white, and it was kind of an ode to like the brand Off White. Um, who Virgil Abloh is like the designer who I was very into his work at the time with like Louis Vuitton and being architect. So it was just it was kind of uh, a foray into like how goalie pads and fashion could align. Like they're actually like a very like high fashion item. Like if you think about it, like
Yeah.
um, these companies manufacture leather goods and handbags, and it's like to me, it's like goalie pads is kind of an extension of that.
100%.
Um, and a lot of kind of I guess one of the cooler things maybe that I've done in gear, which not that I necessarily did anything, but I remember when Virgil was alive, he tweeted something about which sport is underrepresented in fashion, and I said ice hockey. Like has so many elements that could lend itself to like a fashion runway type design, and the next like year's collection, the models were wearing modified Louis Vuitton hockey gloves, holding like the duffel bags, like player gloves, and I was like, I don't know if he actually listened, but you know, it,
You had an
it
influence
came
on Louis
true.
V.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know if that was my idea, but like is somebody saw the vision as well, and I just I've always wanted to try to find a pair of those gloves. I don't know where they ever went or what they did with them, but just generally a cool concept. So yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things with my gear. It's gone a lot deeper than just like being designed to stop pucks. But at the end of the day, my favorite set is definitely the one that stopped the most pucks, which was the Calder Cup set. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
There we go. Yeah, man. Well, we've kept you long enough here. We definitely appreciate your time today, Garrett. I guess lastly, we'll just ask you know, to like, do you ever envision yourself getting back into the game, or where are you at from that standpoint right about now?
So honestly, and this is like kind of a interesting segue, I guess I'd say. Um, I love playing hockey more than anything. I just felt like I wanted to give myself an opportunity to explore some other things that were very exciting within the game of hockey to me. And I've always loved player sticks, like it's evident, right? So I've played men's league every summer for the last decade plus. I took great pride in my men's league team that I ran in Chicago, Lemonhead HC. We won 10 championships in 11 years. We were just absolutely dominant. And, you know, I just have loved scoring goals, like love just being a player and being out there with my buddies. And um, I started to work with a company in like 2018, 2019, Pro Stock Hockey Sticks. And they, their owner, Tresser, he made me 24 custom sticks. And they were like the original Warrior Dolomite stick. And
From early 2000s. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, really cool looking stick. Um, they didn't end up performing nearly as nice as they looked, but he made a promise to me that he was going to make me better sticks, and you know, because I invested a pretty good amount of money into getting the first batch made, and you know, I stuck with him and I believed in like what he was doing and the concept of designing custom hockey sticks, which is something that has just always excited me. And you know, his business has grown in such a way in the last couple of years that I just see such a potential trajectory for it. And he offered me an opportunity to be more a part of the operation and try to get things off the ground and get these sticks in more people's hands. And I felt like it was the time to jump at it. I saw Ovechkin pick one up and score 28 goals in 32 games with it at the end of last season. And now he's 18 goals away from breaking the record with it. Mm-hmm. And it just, to me, I wanted to help further that vision and get as many guys into the sticks with the specs that they want as we possibly could. So I would say my main objective in hockey right now is to be, I call myself, I guess, a weapon specialist. I want to get these guys what they need to score as many goals as possible and get these sticks into the hands of kids that know what they're looking for and want to try some new things. The name brand companies have been churning out some really nice high quality sticks for a long time now, but it seems like the pricing of them is just too much for a lot of people to stomach. And the durability on them has been questionable over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, and just the rates that they just keep going up is just insane. Like
Yeah,
it's nuts.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I felt a duty to kind of align myself with this, the vision of what he wants to do with the company and use my expertise to try and contribute as much as I can. So I've been doing a little bit of retail, a little bit of team sales, and more than anything, just kind of general brand strategy for what we want to do going forward. Whether that, I mean, one of the projects I really want to work on is just bolstering the junior sticks that he has, just having options for people that are looking for a high end build stick and just don't want to spend $300 per stick anymore. Um, Another thing I'm really interested in doing is getting all of these NHL guys that have these unique specs that people want, the stuff that pro stock hockey is carrying and moving. Um, Guys want to try the sticks that the pros are using. So building those out and doing some cool customs and making those more readily available to people is something that we're definitely working on going forward. But yeah, I believe in, the company and the vision, and I think it's a really, really cool thing to be a part of. And it was just difficult to fully invest myself in it while I was still playing hockey. So
Right. Yeah.
I kind of have just taken a stab at it, and I'm looking to do what I can with the company going forward. But to me, it's like if you want to test these sticks with NHL guys, like what better way to do it than be a goalie that can be out there facing shots from guys trying something completely new and giving feedback and getting feedback in real time. I remember we built sticks for Pat Kane a couple summers ago, and it's like I don't think I would have been able to get them to him without skating them across the ice in my goalie gear, like we're at another skate, so it just your spot within the game of hockey, like your ability to share the ice with the best players in the world and compete with them. It's kind of a very unique business trait to have when you're trying to grow a hockey stick company as well. So
Totally.
it's all hockey at the end of the day to me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
forward goalie, men's league, NHL, like whatever. It's like at the end of the day, it's just being on the ice with guys that want to play and want to have a good time doing it.
Definitely. Definitely. Awesome, man. Well, we wish you the best of luck. I feel like we still have, that there's probably some more we can get to. Maybe perhaps we have a round two with you down the road a few months later, but just can't thank you enough for your time today. I know we kept you for quite a bit, but thank you very much for coming on with us, and we wish you the best.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll reconvene when I have some updates for you guys. But
There we
yeah,
go.
let's
Yeah.
get together at a
Perfect.
later date.
Definitely,
All
man.
right. Yeah. All right, Garrett. You be good.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Talk to you soon.